I almost forgot about that. So if you're just joining us, welcome. We're going to wait a few more moments to let people in. Oh, Nicole, I have that book on one of my many piles at home. I love Hilary McKay.
Cute so far.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Or I love her books, I should say. All right. For some reason, Sean Brummer is logged in twice, but there's only one of me here today, fortunately. Although sometimes I wish there were two of me to get things done. If you haven't found the agenda for today's meeting, I will pop it into the chat box so we have it, because we have a lot to talk about today. So I'm going to find that. Oops, where are lost everybody? Okay. All right. Okay. So I think we will get started. We have our 15th person just joined the meeting. And if you take a look at the agenda, first thing is we're going to do introductions and welcome. Do we have any people for whom this is the first time attending a meeting, one of our youth services check-in meetings? I don't think so. I don't think so. So welcome everyone. Feel free to use this hour as an opportunity to check in with each other and to hear about things that are going on at South Central. There will be a lot of time for us to talk about your ideas and discuss things that are coming up at your library or in your departments. But first, I want to give our time over to Mark Iba. And Mark is the Consultant Services Coordinator here at South Central. Many of you have worked with him and know him and have been fortunate enough to do different projects with him in the past. And Mark and I want to talk about some changes that are coming up to the 2021 SLP, Summer Library Program printing. Just to give you all a refresher, every year South Central provides an order form of items that you can request, and then we send to you free of charge as one of our system services. And there are a few changes that are coming up in 2021, and Mark is here to talk about it. So Mark, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Okay, and Sean, you are duplicating. There's now three of you at the meeting, so
Why is that?
well, now there's only two.
All
Okay,
right.
so we had shared with directors a little earlier. Um, Sean, do you want me to share the screen? Uh,
Yeah.
I think you might need to give me permission to do that. It
Okay.
says you've disabled screen sharing. Um,
I'm going to make you a co-host, so then you should
okay,
be able to.
all right. So in the until that's ready, just to catch you up, Madison Public Library has a print shop at the library, and we use them for a number of items during the year. A lot of it is the stuff that tends to be higher volume things. We have a copier in our office that we use for a lot of printing. But that's also used by other people for printing, for copying. So everybody in the building is using that. And so we kind of have a cutoff at a certain point, a certain number of copies. If you're asking for anything above that, we automatically send it to Madison. So libraries, anything that gets sent to Madison, libraries get billed for. And like if we can't do envelopes at our office or carbonless forms or certain other kinds of things, real high volume things, because it ties up our copier. So those things get sent to Madison and libraries get billed for those. The exception is a certain amount of SLP printing. As Sean said, we have a budget set aside to handle like program flyers, program brochures for the most part. And that stuff gets printed at Madison, and that cost is covered. It's not part of the library's annual printing allocation. So what's happening this year, Madison has looked at their printing prices and has realized, I think they've realized this for the last couple of years, but didn't do anything about it. They've really been, for a few years, have been subsidizing the printing for other libraries because their prices were at a place where it was costing them money for everything that they printed. So starting in January of 2021, they are increasing their pricing for color and black and white printing. So so as a result, we're looking at that price increase and seeing what impact is it going to have. Like I say, anything that we do send there, we will notify libraries ahead of time. So if a library sends us a print job and we go, we have to send it there because of the volume or the kind of materials, we will always contact a library and say, okay, we have to send that to Madison. Here's what it will cost you. But for the SLP stuff, which we automatically do there, we were looking at that and trying to figure out, because we have a set budget and our budget was already approved for 2021. So we don't have any more money to put into that. And I don't remember what the amount is. It's like $4,000 or $4,500 or something for the SLP printing for everyone. So what I've done is I've pulled together a spreadsheet that kind of shows what the impact will be keeping, because we have a set budget amount, what the impact will be. And I think what we want to come away from today is to get a feel from you about whether these are still items that libraries want, or would they rather that we use that printing money for something else. I mean, that printing money could go, it could go into youth literacy grants for performers, or other types of things. It wouldn't have to be used for printing. That's what we've done in the past because that's what libraries wanted. So I'm going to share my screen. I'll show you what those costs are and what the impact of those price increases would be. Let me close that. Okay, so I assume you're seeing my spreadsheet now. So are you seeing it, Sean?
Yeah.
Okay, so over here, these are the items right here, the program flyers and program brochures that we currently mention on our printing website as being covered by the summer library program printing money. And typically it's 150 black and white one-sided program flyers and black and white two-sided program brochures, or two-sided color, 750 of those. And this right here is what the 2020 cost was. This is Madison's cost in 2020 was 5 cents for black and white, 10 cents for color. And based on these numbers, here's what the cost would have been. Now, 2020 is not a good year to use because it's kind of an unusual year and libraries didn't do a lot of printing. But these numbers were the same for 2019, obviously, or the same for 2019. So here's what the total cost of those things would have been in 2020 if we printed all that. And this is per library. So, if Monona asks for 150 program flyers and 750 two-sided color, we're going to spend $157.50 with Madison Public Library printing. So the 2021 cost, here's what those numbers go to. The black and white triples, basically. It goes to 15 cents a copy, and the 150 goes to 450, and and this 150 goes to 375 because it's color. It's 2.5 times more. So you can see that the prices increased quite a bit. Color went up 2.5 times. Black and white went up 3 times. So basically what we looked at was to try and figure out, well, how do we get, what kind of numbers do we have to stay at our 2020 numbers, which is where our budget is. If we have those numbers, we can do printing for everybody within our budget. Basically, it would require reducing the black and white one-sided printing from 150 down to 50, and that keeps us at the 750. 1500 black and white two-sided would need to go to 500 to stay at the $150 level, and the color two-sided that was 750 would have to reduce to 300 to stay at that same level of funding. So that's kind of where we're at, because that pricing will be changing in January of 21. And so we want to kind of get a feel from people. What do you think about these print quantities? Can you live with those? Would you rather us use the money for something else and you just pay for printing? Some stuff for summer library program does get printed just through your printing allocation. Each library gets a certain number of dollars a year based on our printing contract. And some libraries use that for some SLP printing. They use it for other things. So that's one option. Friends groups could pay for some of the printing if they're, some libraries do that actually. So I think we're interested, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but we're kind of want to get a feel. Do these numbers, can you live with those numbers? Or does it pose a particular problem, or what are you thinking about it?
So Mark, if you're able to look at the chat, a couple of things have come up. One, we haven't shared this information with directors yet, but this is something we can share this data or with the spreadsheet with directors. And Mark, you said that you're going to mention this at the November All Directors
We will be
meeting.
talking about this with directors at the All Directors meeting, because it affects obviously summer library program, but it also affects a lot of other printing that libraries do, depending on the volume or the kinds of things. There's also some other issues that are going to be happening. Different colors of paper may be a problem going forward, depending on if we're going to print a whole bunch of stuff on bright paper, that may not be a problem. But if one library is asking for a specific color, Madison, their business office is kind of clamping down a little bit on buying special paper. And so in some cases, if it's just one library wanting something very specialized, the library may need to provide that paper to Madison, because they may not be, the printing may not be allowed to purchase that. They're being it's all because of budgets. I mean, Madison budget has had a big cut for 2021, and they're trying to manage that. And so, that's some other things are going to be happening. We'll talk with directors about that. Like envelopes, he can really only get white envelopes now. He's really having a hard time getting natural white, which is a little bit odd.
Hmm.
But and the price of some things like envelopes is really skyrocketing too. So there are some issues there. So I'm looking at the chat, Sean.
Okay, so Amanda from Stoughton has asked, let me get to it, that we would still do printing, but overages would be charged back to the library.
Correct.
Okay. A few.
I can also tell you that the SLP or the SCLS printing costs are quite a bit lower than this. We have a very different kind of copier that we use. And in both cases, the printing cost includes the paper, and it doesn't matter whether when we say, when Madison says, or when we say it's, black and white one-sided, 5 cents for black and white per side. It doesn't matter whether that's 8.5 by 11, 8.5 by 14, or 11 by 17. So that's the same for us too. The paper size doesn't matter. The cost is included in that to print. The cost to run our copier is a little bit less. We have a different kind of machine. And so our prices are a bit lower. And if you're printing lower quantities, and I think on our website, we do indicate what those quantities are. Usually if it's anything above 1,000, we send it to Madison automatically. If it's under 1,000, we can do it in-house. So some of those things we might be able to do in-house, depending on the amount that libraries want. But certain things, like the activity sheets, those we're just going to print a bunch of those for libraries, and so we're just going to send them to Madison. They're just going to print a slew of them, and then we're going to send those out to libraries as they're requested. But some of those things we would print in-house, so the cost would be lower than this. But yes, anything above these maximums, we would go ahead and print, and you can pay for those. So it's not
So,
like it's a limit that you can't print.
so a few other comments and questions in the chat is a few people have said, yeah, we've been requesting fewer copies over the last couple of years anyway. We see that we're not using as much paper. Andrea from Monroe has asked, just overall, have library printing requests decreased? Do you know
Um,
that, Mark?
well, I would say SLP printing over the last few years has definitely decreased some.
Yeah.
Where I don't know if that's a function of what's being created and how much libraries like it, but we are seeing that the numbers that we're printing is down a little bit. I would say that printing overall for libraries is maybe not down overall, but there's certainly a change. Libraries are printing way more uh, program flyers and things, and they used to print a lot of bookmarks and certain kinds of things. And now most of what libraries are printing are flyers or half sheets to advertise programs that are coming up. And I cut a lot of those things, so I'm seeing that libraries are doing lots and lots of programming. And so I think there's a shift in what they're doing. Um, there are also options for maximizing your printing. Obviously, if you can do things as half sheets, you get 2 for every sheet you print. Um, because things are paper size doesn't matter. If you've got something that's going to be maybe multiple sheets, you can have Deb work with you to design it as a maybe say like an 11 by 17, a booklet. So one sheet of paper can get you 4 pages folded if it's in a 8.5 or 8.5 or 11 by 17 format. You can get a 4-page booklet that's one sheet, two-sided, and that's the same price as an 8.5 by 11 but 8.5 by 11 sheet, two-sided. So you get 4 pages versus one. So sometimes it's a matter of thinking about how stuff is laid out to maximize the number you get if you need more numbers. But yeah, I think overall, library printing, we still have some libraries that go over their maximums because they're doing lots of programming and printing lots of things. But 2020 is way off. I mean, don't even look at 2020. We're hardly doing anything right now.
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
So you mentioned early on putting the money towards early literacy grants. So are you kind of saying we have 2 options? Either we go with basically the free SLP printing that SCLS does for libraries, but the numbers will be drastically reduced, the amounts, or we can scrap that entirely and put the money towards something else.
Sean and I talked that this is simply money. It's system aid that we have said, what's a way that it could be used, and historically we've provided printing services to libraries for SLP. It doesn't have to be used for that. It's money that Sean has at her discretion. It could be allocated for something else, and that's kind of, if you all felt that it would be better served putting it to a different use, and then you just pay for your printing, you could certainly do that.
I mean,
And
technically,
that's not a decision you have to make today, but
right.
those are options.
I mean, technically, if you put that money towards the early literacy grant, and then we choose to print things through you guys and we just pay for them, couldn't technically that grant money go towards paying for that still, if we wanted to? If it's supporting programming. that make sense?
Yeah, we probably could. I'm trying to think of how tracking that for us. Um,
Sure. Maybe
because
that's too tricky, but
well, it's yeah. We just have to figure out how we track that because it would be. I mean, right now, with youth literacy grants, you basically uh, submit the receipts to Sean, and you get your money. Um, and we send that directly to you as reimbursement. The printing, it would be in-house, but we'd have to, so you might use some of it as in that way, and some of it would go to you as cash. And I'd have to talk to Carrie and see how comfortable she'd be with that, because it would be a kind of mixing two things that currently aren't mixed. Um, and just
Something
what,
we didn't talk about, Mark.
yeah, we hadn't talked
Hmm.
about that.
Hmm.
Um,
So what Mark and I have been talking about over the last couple of weeks with Deb, of course, um, are just some ideas that we have. And the first thing that I want to let you know is we're not making any decisions today. And what is the result is going to be based on your input and what you want. Okay. So what I'd like to do is create a survey, or, get some input from you regarding what is most valuable for you. So looking at the typical graphic order form that we submit, that we send out every year, how valuable are these materials to you to be printed and sent to you? Could some of these items be provided as PDFs and you can print them on demand? Is that something that would work? And nobody has to answer now. As well as envision how this extra, it is about $4,000, right, Mark?
yeah, I think it's 40 some hundred.
Yeah, yeah. It
I
used to
can't.
be it used to be 3,500 when I started a zillion years ago, but I think we've raised it to around 4,000. Could this be allocated to libraries within just the general youth services programming fund? Or based on questions that some of you've had, could we do something system-wide with that $4,000 every year? Is there an initiative, a youth services initiative that this could help support? I don't write LSTA grants anymore because the LSTA funds that are available to me are so small for a system-wide project. It's not worth my while to write a grant for $1,200. And it's a lot of work and a lot of reporting and backup work. But is there something we could do for $4,000? Are there some presenters that we could bring in? That type of thing. So that's something we could think about too. But what I really want to know is, how are you using the materials, the items that we're printing every year? What would you really miss if it goes away? Or are there some things that would be really cool to provide that we're not providing right now? Because right now it's just kind of a well-oiled machine, and sometimes those well-oiled machines need to be evaluated and and checked for updates. And this is the time to do it. This is something that we've been talking about in-house for a few years. And as the materials change in the summer library program manual, we're seeing fewer activity sheets, for example. As that changes, this is a perfect time to reflect on this service that has been the same for the nearly 20 years that I've been here. But I don't want to make any changes without the expertise of everybody here. I guess what I'm creating in my head is, what type of input can can we get from all of you that Mark can then take to the all directors meeting in November? So he's going to that meeting with some suggestions already about what would be most beneficial for youth services librarians. How's that sound? Yeah, okay.
I-
So go ahead, Mark.
And I was just going to say that would be helpful to take to that meeting. And I mean, really, because this is youth services money, so it's not like the plan is not to use it somewhere else. It's not like we're going to the directors and saying, oh, well, they're not going to use it. Do you want it for something else? You know, if you don't want to use it for printing, we'd like to find some other use for it in the youth services area. We would do that. So, but I think it would be nice to tell them, you know, this issue has come up. Here's how the youth services librarians are proposing that we use these funds instead of printing, would be to use it this way, if that's your choice. Or if we're going to use it for printing, just let them know. So that would be good.
Okay. So we do have some chat happening that, yep, if South Central provides the PDFs, libraries could print them off at their buildings. Nicole, is that what you meant? Yep. Yep, and now we're already having the idea of early literacy, going to early literacy, which back in the day, I was able to write $45,000, $50,000 grants to get big projects to support early literacy. And I'd love to be able to go back to that. This isn't $40,000, it's $4,000. But if there are some things that we can do to support those very important initiatives and services. And DeForest is agreeing, early literacy, as well as PDFs. Dawn, thank you for remembering those grants from a long time ago. And yeah, people are talking about Beanstack, and hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about Beanstack later on when Tessa joins us.
Sean, there was a comment about you know, doing printing outside with a vendor and submitting the receipt. That would certainly obviously be a possibility. I think what you'd find that especially with color printing, that even the prices for Madison are probably way lower than what you might pay at Kinko's or something for color copies. So depending on where you're going, it would still be a better deal to go to Madison or come to us than going outside. But that would certainly be an option if you needed to get something done.
Mark, do you know anything about BSI, what their prices are? I'm putting you on the spot. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, you don't have to.
it depends on what you're printing there. Um, their price breaks are probably more beneficial if you're doing really large quantities of things. When we're doing most of the stuff that Deb sends there are like high run newsletters that are maybe 4 or 8 pages, and they're doing, you know, thousands of them. That's a better place to send them. But for smaller jobs, 1,000 copies of this or that, there's no real benefit to send it there, and the turnaround time is longer.
Okay.
So.
And of course, Deb is still included, and Deb is still creating things. So it's not like we're cutting Deb out of the conversation at all. And I've been thinking, Deb does so much amazing work, but some of the work she does is like this constant babysitting the copier. And if we could give her a little more time for her actual creative work rather than all of the printing work. And Mark does a lot of the same thing. He mentioned that he cuts the bookmarks, and you know, he's my supervisor, and he's spending time cutting bookmarks and paper down for all of us. So you're just thinking about efficiency on all different levels, but of course your needs come first. So I think we'll do that. I will get a survey made up. Probably it won't go out until next week because I have a bunch of presentations this week. But let's get some information that we then can share with you and know that it will be shared with the directors. Yeah? Okay. Oh, I'm so glad that this went, how this went. This is huge. This is huge for me, for all of us. So the other reason why I want Mark to stick around, yay, thanks, Karen, is basically because he has a lot of experience with photography and media. And as the months roll on, we're going to be doing more virtual programming. And we started talking in the summer about the different types of kits that South Central will be purchasing this year and maybe next year. And one of the ideas that came up, I think maybe in one of our meetings and certainly in the adult services meeting, was could there be a kit of equipment that libraries could borrow to film their virtual programs? So we started with that conversation, and then Nicole and I were talking last week. And what this conversation has evolved into one not so much about borrowing items to what are the best items, what's the best equipment that libraries can be using for your virtual programs that you would purchase and then use for your programs. So what we want to hear what your needs are and if you have discovered any equipment that has been working really well. So yeah, let's start with what do you wish you had? Or what are some issues that you've come across in your virtual programming that equipment could help you solve? You know what? I'm going to start with Nicole because she and I talked last week, and then Karen will go to you.
Hi. Yeah, I just know I'm looking to get some sort of tablet or some kind of mobile device that will just be more flexible for recording videos and pictures and possibly, well, we need it to stream live to social media. So something kind of all in one, and there's just so much out there that I don't really know where to start. But we do have a couple webcams now that have been fantastic for daily virtual story times and things like that, but we're just ready to expand on that.
So you want to make sure that you can do live streaming.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have some comments in the chat about microphones too. Oh, I'm sorry, Karen. Yes, please.
So I bought this for like 25 bucks. It's a weighted stand. It has this gooseneck on it, and it holds my phone or my iPad. And unfortunately, it doesn't bend down and stay down as much as I want. And so I have, not in front of me, I have a sack full of money that I hang over this gooseneck that pushes it down a little bit. And this has been really great for filming craft videos or anything that I want to point the camera down at. I use it for other things as well because I can also keep it at face height so that if I'm using it for live streaming, it can be at my face height. So that's great. And then we have a webcam that I bought that focuses way better than my laptop camera focused, so that when I move my hands like this, you can actually still see my hands, whereas my laptop camera used to make them really blurry. So the web camera is way better. I also bought this tripod, which I have not found this ring light very useful, except for, again, that this will bend down and I can videotape craft things, and then the light lights up the craft that I'm working on. So this has also been handy, but not super necessary because of having this one. I would say one or the other maybe. And this one I can do more with, I think, because it fits the iPad, whereas the ring light doesn't fit an iPad, the one that I purchased. I think you can probably get some that do. And then I also have a headset with a microphone on it that I have found useful for blocking out the noise of my family because I find that they distract me more than they distract the people on the other end. Those are the things that I've been using. Oh, here's one of my favorite things though. I'm gonna have to move my camera, don't get dizzy. I have this little clippy thing that I clip onto my laptop, and then the web camera sits on there. And then I have two computers going. So I have this laptop, and then I have a monitor back there. So you are all up on the monitor, and I can still work on my computer, on my computer here. So I can have my notes here for my story time, and I can see what's happening up there on my monitor. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's really great information. So we do have, I want to go to a comment that Andrea made that you use your Android phone with the mic. Does that mean that you have an external mic?
Yep, just one that I plug in that just clips on. We found that when we videotaped with the iPad, though very convenient for numerous reasons, it did not have as good of sound as we can get through just our cell phones. So we almost exclusively use our personal cell phones, believe it or not. We do have, we've got a tripod too, and it's one that allows it to tip so that we can do it for crafts and things, as Karen was saying, including straight on.
Well, and Dawn in the chat has mentioned that they have a great gooseneck stand too. So what I would love, if those of you who have specific items, Karen, you have a couple, Dawn, Andrea, Nicole, if you could send us if the name of the item, the brand, if that's easy enough for you to grab, will you send that to me as an email and or take pictures and send them? And Amanda has mentioned a few times, I'm sorry, Amanda, I didn't get to your comment about the microphones being really useful, but really needing to have good mics.
I have found the microphone on these, really inexpensive earbuds is really sufficient. And I plug that into the iPad, and I don't wear it. I just hang it on something out of sight of where I'm talking, and it picks up the sound.
Great. And Andrea, you're asking, does it matter if we're filming from home versus in library? Are you asking about equipment or how people are filming?
Well, it just occurs to me that we all may have access to different things or have different parameters that we have to be concerned about. So that may impact which tool works best for us. So it might be something to think about or mention.
Yeah.
Well, Craig is doing some research. We have recently put together a cooking kit and a baking kit, and they will go out separately. And as part of those kits, we actually, if you remember, we had the stop motion animation kit that had 6 iPad minis in it. And they had light kits, light boxes, lights, software. What we did was, those aren't circulating a whole lot. So what we did was we took 2 of the iPads out of that. So there's now 4 iPads in that kit. And we put one of the iPads in each of the cooking and baking kits. And we bought a tripod for it. And so those kits, they're really intended as demonstrate, so if you're doing a cooking program virtually, you could, would have the equipment in there. There's video editing software on the iPad. You can, stream it to the web. So we set those up, but we started thinking about, should we create a kit that's a virtual programming kit. And we talked about that a little bit, and we took it to the Library Innovation Subcommittee. And their concern was that having a kit that traveled really doesn't address many needs of libraries, because if you have a program need and the kit's busy, you can't do your program, or to have to schedule it. And so really it would be more of a way for people to maybe try some things, and maybe have a couple different, maybe have an iPad or some sort of other tablet, and maybe a couple microphones or whatever that people could try, and as samples for trying to get their hands on something, not so much to do a program, but to see what equipment might we buy. Would that be helpful? I mean, that
I think also like classes on how to do things could be useful. I've figured out most of what I need now, but back in March, I could have really used some help figuring out like how to do Facebook Live and how to stream from Zoom to Facebook Live. And
so now that you've figured out how to do it, you could lead a class on that, right, Karen?
yes, I could.
She's offered.
I showed this easel, it's a paint easel, and I stand this up as straight as I can so that my iPad is pretty straight on. And then I just hang that little earbud microphone. I just hang that right on here. And then I can stand over here to film, and the microphone picks up the sound.
That's for your story times?
I don't use this anymore. I do my story times like right here, like we're doing this.
Oh, okay.
I used this when I had a puppet theater set up in my living room.
Okay.
And I needed something that was filming me while I was at the puppet theater.
Okay.
Is there ever a need for more than one mic? Would you ever need multiple mics? Like if you're, working with somebody else, or doing a puppet theater with your kids for a story time?
I needed to figure that out because I had 2 grandchildren who were behind the puppet theater and I was in front of it. And it, I figured it out, but yeah.
Well, maybe, Sean, maybe what we could do too as part of this is to have, I mean, Craig has been starting to do some research on the equipment that's available. I mean, there is so much stuff out there, microphones and devices to connect microphones to computers and to iPads and to other tablets and phones and tripods and lights. And it's just, I mean, there's a lot of stuff available. And you can spend from, a few $100s up to thousands of dollars, depending on what you want to get. So maybe we can work to just kind of create a list of some of the options, maybe kind of by price. So if a library knows, well, we want to spend about $1,000 to put together some equipment, you could kind of mix and match and say, well, we'll go a little lower end on the camera, but higher end on the video or on the audio part of it. And just maybe that would be helpful. Instead of having to go out and do your own research, maybe we could do it and kind of put together either a web page or some documentation or something.
And I think it would be especially helpful hearing from people who have, it's like looking at reviews that friends have written about a book. If you all are using some equipment that you really like and that has been useful, please let us know. You can send the information to me or Mark or both of us, and we can collect it that way. I also like the idea of, and Karen, I was going to bring this up, is maybe having one of our meetings is about tips and tricks that you want to share with each other about your virtual programs, about what you've learned over these last 7 months. Anything else about equipment or about virtual programming, as long as we've got Mark here? Or anything else for Mark? This reminds me of something I'm going to put in the new business, but I want to remind you that kits are now available. So you can request either the maker kits the way that you always have through the online request form, or you can request the youth services programming kits by sending an email over to Jeff at storykits@sclsdelivery.org or at delivery. I'll send that information to you because I've been talking with people over the last couple of weeks, a couple of months, that as we go into the winter months, having more materials and items that you can use for your virtual programming, we really want to support you in as many ways as possible. So our kits are available. You know, having the printing press, it's not the same as doing hands-on printing, but all of the maker kits are available if you want to do a demo, for example. And there is information about borrowing the kits on the different kit pages. What we are asking is that when you receive the kit at your library, that you quarantine it for 4 days. So you don't open it for 4 days. The kit is only to be used by library staff. So we're keeping few hands as possible on the materials. And Jeff can answer questions for you too. Yes, Amanda.
So I know in the past we were only supposed to use those kits in the library. We weren't to take them into the community. How about those of us doing programming from home? Can we take kits home?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to say that, Mark. That's something we didn't talk about.
Yeah, and I
I'm
think
jumping in.
even the issue of taking it into the community, as long as library staff are taking it and using it, that's fine. I don't think we want to loan it to libraries and have libraries then loan it to the school district or to the historical society or the literacy council. But if you're going to a meeting somewhere and you're taking it and using that equipment, I don't have a problem with that either. As long as library staff are taking it and using it, that's fine.
Yeah, if it's an outreach event, even when we're out of quarantine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the idea was exactly what Mark said, that we don't want you borrowing the materials and then checking them out to a patron. That's a good, we should verify or confirm that on the web
make
pages.
Sure.
Yeah, that outreach is supported. Okay. Another question, and this might be a good one for Mark to hear too. I plan on still doing an AccuCut or Ellison rotation in early 2021. Is that still helpful? Purchasing some AccuCut? Okay, I'll send out a form. I'll let Jeff know, and we will collect your what you want to purchase for 2021 for those dies. All right. Anything else? Mark, do you have any other questions for the youth services folks? All right. Well, you're welcome to stick around.
I've got another meeting I have to get ready for.
Oh, that's right.
So
Darn.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, I'm just going to check our agenda. So thank you for everybody's input. I'm looking at our new topics that we've talked about: the printing, we've talked about equipment needs, and just to let you know that many of you probably saw it, but the summer library program manuals for 2021 are now available. I haven't opened it yet, but I will really soon. Because I will send out an updated tutorial about how to use the online manual. So that is a big news coming up. That also means that I'll start preparing for the annual webinar that I present on summer library program ideas for babies, toddlers, preschoolers. So we haven't set a date for that yet. Jean and I have talked about it. It will be sometime in December, in the first couple of weeks of December. Okay, so that is coming up. If anybody has ideas or wants to even be a guest on that webinar, let me know and you can join us. Okay, so I want to go back to the the chat. Oh, Amanda has mentioned, we're in talking about the AccuCut and the Ellison dies, is that it probably, especially for 2021, we could look at some dies that would make it easier for families to do crafts. I love that idea. I love that idea. I see a lot of head nods too. That's great. Any other questions in the chat before we go over? Yeah, Nicole, we don't need them, but it would be nice to have. Thank you. Thank you. So yes, as we do the AccuCut requests, the AccuCut identification of dies, think about how you could use them in the take and make bags that you're creating for your community. I think that would be really great. So I want to welcome our special guest. We have two guests this time, Mark and Tessa. Tessa Michelson-Schmidt from the Division for Library. I always say the wrong old name. I'm sorry.
It's
Tessa,
fine. I
Public
don't even know what our name
Development
is right
Team
now.
is with us. I wanted to invite her so you guys can see her and ask questions of Tessa. I know that we had a beanstalk webinar. I am losing my mind, losing my words. Thank you, Andrea. Last week that some of you may have attended, looking at how can Beanstack be used to support programming throughout the season, as well as a few other messages or emails that I forwarded from Tessa to you over the last couple of weeks. So I thought this might be a good time to check in with her and to give her an idea of what's going on, what we're thinking about.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Sean. I don't want to use up all of your precious meeting time, but it is really nice to see familiar faces and names. And yes, I feel like I am always attached to a lot of emails. So hopefully it's helpful most of the time, or a quick delete if it's not relevant to you. The thing I just wanted to put out there specifically, and then absolutely take any questions or comments that you all might have. But you hopefully did see the message announcing the Project Ready virtual cohorts. And I can also resend this if it's like one of a flurry of so many things coming at you. But Project Ready is essentially an online self-paced course related to race and equity topics, specifically for library staff serving youth. And this has been out for about a year. And essentially, I was in a cohort with several of my state counterparts, so the library youth services librarian from each state, to kind of delve into the content and see how it works, because we all were excited about it, but kind of thought, I don't know if I can promote this until I really know what it's all about. And it's really, really good. And for me personally, that's all I could speak to. I found it really, really valuable and also really hard. Like many things that have come up this year in particular, really looking deep at issues of race and systemic oppression and things like that are, on one hand, churn up a lot of passion and relate to a lot of things that those of us, we're serving the public, want to know better and do better on. On the other hand, it can be really emotionally overwhelming depending on your lived experiences and who you are serving. So really, that's my long way of saying, put a lot of thought into what is the best way to make this opportunity available to library staff in Wisconsin. And my colleague, Monica, the school library consultant, and I decided that this might not be for everyone and this might not be the right time, but we wanted to offer the opportunity for those who felt like they were interested and could commit to being part of a virtual cohort starting in January. So there is a pretty simple application. that is open for you to say if you're interested and what days and times you might be willing to meet. These are going to be small groups meeting online and going through the course again on a shared calendar of like, let's try to do each module and talk about them all together. But it's really kind of self-discipline. We're not going to be keeping track of anything other than trying to move us all through this together. And like I said, from my experience, I find it really, really valuable, and really the content is really valuable, but I found that being able to talk to it with people who are in a position, in my case, at a state library level was really, really valuable. So Monica and I hope that having library staff at a school and at public libraries who are really trying hard to serve the kids and families in their community, that having cohorts of you all would be valuable to talk together. So that's the gist of it. There's a short information session that you can watch if you want to learn more or see the online application. I'll resend that. The deadline that we are shooting for is the 30th, or the end of the month 30th, which is Friday, or Saturday the 31st. But yeah, I'm going to pause there in case this is old news and you're like, I've already submitted my application, or you have something really specific you'd want to ask me. Nothing like a mic drop. No, I'll give that intentional pause. We all know that in virtual meetings we need to take a pause.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Nicole.
I think the email said, Tessa, right, that if you guys might do it again later. So if we choose not to do it this time, there may be a possibility to do it in a future date.
So yes and no. Thanks for asking that, Nicole. So one is, this is open free anytime. So you want to start right now or hop around and do what you want. Anyone could do that. It's free. It was through a grant from IMLS, the Institute for Museum and Library Services. So it's out there for everyone to use. When we were laying this out, it is recommended that the course takes a year to complete. And I don't know about you all, but like I can barely plan for like one day or maybe 2 weeks if I'm lucky. For what my life holds. So we thought, let's try to do the first section and basically do January through May. And then at that point, kind of pause with everyone to say, who wants to continue? Do we pause here? Are there folks that want to restart? We'll just see where we're all at by then. But for the chunk of future, as we know, we were just looking at like the January through May 2021 window. And I see the question in the chat, and I'm gonna divert my eyes over here and grab the link and put it in, because yeah, having something to look at probably would be easier than doing really fast Google searching. So what else? Any other questions or comments, or is there something else in the chat? Okay, someone had to go do desk shift. Yeah.
Thanks, Andrea. Go ahead.
Tessa, I'm just wondering, we have several people on staff here who are interested in doing it. Are you arranging the cohorts? Is it one cohort of who is ever in it, or will they be broken down into smaller groups? And do you see an advantage of those of us in being in a cohort with others from other libraries or together?
Great question. Thank you. We are open to whoever wants to apply. Yeah, we have asked, been asked, like, can 5 people from Len Library join? Could we have school library assistants join? If you're committed and you are serving youth, then please be part of it. I think our biggest thing is what makes sense for your actual commitment. If you have everybody in your library can meet on Wednesday at the same time, and that's what you select, and that's where you all end up being, that's fine. If you feel like you're going to learn better if you're on different times, or not with your friend group or your peer group, then you could opt to put that note in of like, I'd like to be in a different group than my library colleagues. I mean, I think Monica and I, probably the biggest task is going to be sorting out who and where. I think our goal was to have cohorts at about 10 people, just for that intimacy and connection. And it's going to be really self-driven. We've also asked for people to identify as a possible, I forget the term we use now off the top of my head, but like a facilitator for the meeting. We'll be setting up, but if we have, I don't know, 10 virtual cohorts, I don't expect that we're going to be going to every one. We want to make sure the meetings are functional and working, but ideally the conversation is for the folks who want to be in that, and not having us looming in and out every time. Does that help? So I guess put your preferences in there. The more the merrier. And there is an opportunity to also indicate if you have a preference to be in an affinity group. And basically what that means is if you identify as a person, Black, Indigenous, person of color in particular, this is a curriculum about race. And if that is how you identify and would prefer to be in a group of people who have experiences similar to yours, then you can elect that as well.
So Nicole,
we're at time. Yeah.
Yep, that if I could just take 2 other minutes of your time, folks, we'll get off soon. I think what we could do is I can talk to Tessa, and maybe after the project is over, we could maybe have an informal panel presentation about the project, whether it's people from our system or people from other systems. Maybe we could consider that, doing that for folks. And I forgot to mention that I've ordered a whole bunch of paperbacks of New Kid, so we will start our discussion of New Kid very, very soon. I'm just waiting for those books to come from A Room of One's Own, our local woman-owned bookshop here in Madison. I thought that would be a great place to spend our programming dollars. So what I'm proposing is that we identify different days and times, and whoever can join in on those discussions during those times, join in. We'll make it really informal. You all have facilitated more book clubs than I have recently, so we'll make it very, very friendly and very informal for whoever wants to participate at whatever level. So sorry I didn't fill you in on that project early on. Okay, so we are at time. Take a look at the rest of the agenda. I provided links to upcoming youth services programs and webinars, either South Central sponsored or sponsored by other agencies, as well as information about another grant that Tessa sent out yesterday or a couple of days ago about a STEM grant. And let me know if anything comes up in the next couple of days, couple of weeks, that we can talk about at an upcoming meeting. I'll schedule another one for mid to late November. We do have Anna Horius from Baraboo is presenting a webinar for us in early November. So we have other things going on. Anna's program, CCBC Shorts, and another meeting coming up in November for youth services. So please feel free to reach out to me, reach out to each other, reach out to Tessa. We're all here for each other, and I'm sending you healthy wishes and calm wishes, and I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you. Bye, everybody. I'm going to stop recording.